usually is.
Brown drives, layup off the glass.
That's not the first time we've seen a superstar in green and white sacrifice the body.
Scoring net, knocked away. Ballgame.
Welcome into another episode of First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well, which, let's be honest, we just lost to the Sixers. You're probably not doing well. No one's doing well. Wayne Spooney and Jake Eisenberg are here. Spooney, how's it going, man? Welcome back.
I've got an unfortunate haircut, and we're on a 2-game losing streak, so I could be better, I guess.
Amazing. Jake, a bittersweet loss for you, given the mistress, at least, is back in our lives.
True. We're good to have him back. He was a bright spot, I felt like, despite the 6 for 18. Yeah, it's always a good time in everyone's life when Derek White is back.
Yeah, we got to search for those good vibes in the rubble here. All right, well, look, we're going to talk about the loss to the Sixers and whether or not any of the current issues are at risk of being long-term issues. We'll talk about Joe Mazzulla's post-game stoush with Gary Washburn, also the upcoming in-season tournament. But first, the Celtics, they lose 103-106 to the Sixers after almost tying the game in the dying moments there. The Celtics did not shoot well for the second straight game and have now dropped 2 in a row. Spooney, the inevitable mid-season adversity, coming a little early here. What are your thoughts on this one overall?
So I think I was a lot more frustrated with the Timberwolves loss than I was with this one, other than it was Philly. I think, like, the defense played really well. I like that Joe mixed up the looks on Embiid. Like, he obviously had a good game, but he didn't have like a dominant 50-piece. And we made him uncomfortable at times. And to me, they like the 32% from 3 does not actually tell the story of how poorly they shot the ball in this game, because they made like 3 or 4 threes in those dying embers of like the last 2.5 minutes. And that dragged their 3-point percentage up from like 27% to 32%. So it was a much worse shooting performance than the numbers show. And I think Minnie and Philly defend the exact same way. They have an absolute monster 7-footer that is an elite rim protector that doesn't leave the paint and dares you to make jump shots. And if you don't make jump shots, you're going to have a very long offensive night. And even though we didn't make shots, we shot under 40% from the floor. They still almost pulled some crazy Miami Heat magic out of the hat and won that game. So, like, there's positives to take away. I think there's frustrations to take away too.
Yeah, the defense was excellent. I felt like Maxey killed us a little bit, like at the beginning of the fourth quarter, like on those floaters. But he was 11 for 27, and if you keep Embiid under 30 points and Maxey to 11 for 27, then the job is done. I think long term, the game plan against Philly is actually clear, and defending them is relatively simple. Like, outside of Embiid and Maxey, there's not another guy on that roster that you're scared of when he's got the ball in their hands. Like, at least when they had Harden, there was another playmaker out there. Right now, like, obviously there's catch and shoot guys with Oubre and Covington and Batum, but as good as Oubre has been, he's not a guy that you're really worried about, like, across a series or anything like that. So defensively, if they have the ability to kind of lock those guys down across the series. And don't forget, this is the peak for Philly. Wednesday night,
November.
Yeah, exactly. This is the peak for these guys. So this is kind of what they do. And offensively, frustrating, absolutely. Because how many times can we sit here and say the issue was the offense again? And if you go back and watch, I know, Spirit, you posted a good clip of the fourth quarter. I watched the third quarter today. It wasn't as bad as it felt at the time. Like, I forgot about the Porzingis just missed dunk. Like, there was like Drew Holiday missed layups. There was a bunch of chippies. And a lot of them just wide open threes that they have been making and typically do make. So it wasn't as bad as it felt in the moment when I went back and rewatched.
Yeah, and even like in this case, compared to the Wolves game, Porzingis got up the most shots of everyone in the team in the fourth quarter. Like we were at least going to him. Like when I was writing the run sheet, I was like, man, we didn't go to Porzingis again. What are we doing? But we totally went to him. Maybe not enough, especially throughout the course of the game. And in that second and third quarter is where we really, for the second game running as well, have seen that offensive stagnation where they went up. Was it 29-22 to end the first quarter? They stretched that lead in the beginning of the second quarter. And then it's like they just became complacent, and their ownership, psychologically speaking, of the Sixers, they were just like, we've got this. We can just coast here. The Sixers, they had the momentum behind them, the crowd behind them. They got back into it. And then despite our late game efforts, rather, with the 2-1-2 press and taking the ball out of Maxey and Embiid's hands, we'd put ourselves in such a shit position that we were never going to climb out of it. And we've seen 2 games in a row now where we just can't survive poor shooting against the team with an elite rim protector, whether it's Rudy Gobert or Joel Embiid. I suppose one of the main differences, if you want to have a positive takeaway, is that last year we also could not survive those circumstances, but we were losing by double digits. And in each of these cases, you alluded to it earlier, Spoonie, like we're still somehow in a position to win these games where we're shooting like absolute arse and unable to get to the rim. So I don't know. I'm starting to, I was saying to you guys before we recorded, right? Like, if you're going to win 60 games, which would be an excellent outcome to the season, you've got to lose 22. And so, as much as I've been going back and forth for the last 24 hours about, like, will we or won't we be in a position to win a championship, these are just early issues for a newly formed core that need to be ironed out. So, disappointing, but I'm not, like, giving up on this team. Like, if you look at NBA Twitter, a lot of fans have already.
Yeah. And you know what? Jake, you're muted, buddy. Go ahead.
Sorry, I've got the flu, so I'm muting myself to spare the audience of some gross noises. But everybody needs to relax. Like, you got to pace yourself. Like, this is an 82-game season. This is game 7. And I understand that there's a PTSD element to the reactions that people are having. But, like, you're going to miss shots in a playoff series and just lose the game. And that's kind of the nature of the NBA. And a feeling like, we've seen these guys underperform so many times. It's just, that's the experience of basketball and watching the NBA is like, your team is not going to play the same every single night. You're not going to make the same amount of shots every single night. Eric Weiss talking about shooting variance, like the nature of the way that this sport is played, not to get too existential on everybody, but like you just can't have the expectation that they're going to play at this 60-game pace every game. As you said, Ben, they have to lose 22, let's say. And so on those nights, the shots aren't going to go down. They have won multiple games this season where they've shot worse than their opponent, the Knicks and the Heat game. So they can do it. The difference is Embiid, especially early in the season right now where he's fresh versus a playoff series where he's like nicked up and tired. Tatum's able to get downhill on Embiid a lot more like as series and as seasons go on. Speaking of Tatum, we should get to him as well because he is not devoid of blame.
So, Jake, you're totally right. I don't care if you get blocked 4 times at the rim. You have to challenge Joel Embiid. You're going to get foul calls at some point. You at least have to keep him honest. Like, he didn't even, look at the rim half the time. He would get by the first defender, and then he would almost, back it out sometimes. You just can't play that way. And he kind of did the same thing against Gobert, but his jumper was falling against Minnie, so it didn't really matter as much. But, I just don't understand, if we're going to blame anything for that loss, it is sort of the lackadaisical way in that they kind of went about it. There were so many 50-50 balls they just couldn't get their hands on. So many rebounds where it was just juggled up and Philly came up with it. And they just didn't really seem up for it. And I think Tatum was probably the second worst with the lackadaisicalness. I don't... Did Jaylen Brown think this was a pickup game at the Y or something? I don't know what Jaylen Brown was doing because he was not in the game until the last 2.5 minutes. But those guys are the leaders. They are the tone setters. And if they come out and are scared to attack the rim, what do you think? Payton Pritchard's going to attack. Payton
No.
Pritchard drove harder than Jaylen did. He at least had one hard drive. He kicked it to Al for an open three. Like, you got to go at him. Like, just go at him. Who cares if you get blocked? Like, it's going to happen. You're also going to get fouled. You're also going to make some. He's not going to get over in time every single time. So it just like infuriates me that you're like letting the defense work without even pressuring it when you just like don't even try. So yeah, Tatum's got tons of blame.
Yeah, and I feel like we were in the playback stream screaming. If everyone watching, come watch the playback streams and go through these emotions with us together. Like Embiid camped out in like the free throw line, and they like you had to make pull up threes, right? We've spoken about that, but it felt like they were just not purposeful in getting to like really comfortable pull up threes. They were like getting to them, but like the spacing felt like it was off. It just didn't feel like anyone was all like no one understood what the Sixers was doing, and that's on everyone. That's Joe, Tatum. The amount of pick and pops that they were running, where like the pop was open, make the pass quickly, and some of the 3-point attempts like were just 5 to 10% more contested than they would have been if they're making these passes. Like lackadaisical, just not crisp enough. That's like they just weren't. It was obvious what the Sixers were doing for like the majority of the game, and it felt like they were letting them off the hook just a tiny bit every single possession.
Yeah, and then compare that to that near comeback at the end of the game. I saw a couple of possessions, Horford and Tatum both doing this. They'd catch the ball facing the basket at the free throw line and then actually backpedal out and bring their defender, oftentimes Embiid, out with them. And just that little 3-second action alone, bringing Embiid further away from the paint, we could run so much off of that. And obviously, we scored a shitload of points in that small period of time. And just the effort and the approach, the mental approach to, approach Philly's defense in that way just makes so much more happen for the team. And in that second and third quarter stretch, they weren't thinking that way. They weren't executing that way. So we know they can do it. That's the most frustrating part. And I guess what's more frustrating is it just comes back to everything that we've found so frustrating about this team for the last 2 or 3 years. And you can trade Marcus Smart, and you can think you're getting rid of the real problem areas in that sense. But we've been saying this for years now. Like the team is led by the Jays, and the excuse that you could make for them about their relative youth and how like it's tough for them to lead given how young they are, like that is diminishing with every season that passes by. And I just don't think, even though Tatum's only 25, we can really use that excuse anymore. But they have to lead from the front, and if there's a lackadaisical nature that is sort of permeating throughout the team, they have to be the ones to pull us out of it. And Tatum in this game, 21% usage rate, that is far drastically lower than what we've seen from him sort of historically, and at least so far this season. So frustrating, but I guess I need to not see it as a long-term problem. And yet, from what I've just said, it has been a long-term problem. But you hope that they've got the personnel and the approach this year to sort of recognize it early and move away from it. So let's run through the other problems with this game, and then I want to sort of circle back on what else might be a long-term problem, or what hopefully we can write off as a short-term problem. So another issue in this game, we sort of touched on it. We've got these two excellent, in theory, stretch bigs, Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis, and yet we couldn't pull consistently Joel Embiid out of the DJ Daniel saying KP is the best player. We'll come back to that. We couldn't pull consistently their bigs, namely Joel Embiid, out of the paint and open up scoring opportunities and lanes for our scorers. Spoonie, why do you think that is? Is it just because we just simply couldn't hit threes, or is there more to it?
Well, I think definitely part of it is you just don't make threes, and Philly's daring you. Like, you got to hit 42%, and then we'll start bringing Embiid up to the height of the screen, and then that's when you can get in behind him for cuts or just drive right by him. But also, I think Jake nailed it when he was saying like the pick and pop was there, but it's almost like we bailed Philly out and like would pick up the dribble, then turn, then make the pass. And it's like, dude, where's that? Like, Tatum used to hit those like behind the back passes to Horford on the pick and pop, and he would be wide open every single. I don't think I saw one of those last night. And I mean, the fourth quarter, people were like hard on them in the fourth quarter. I actually thought the fourth quarter was probably their best quarter other than the first. But the first was really, they just got out in transition. We're getting turnovers and picking the ball off the rim and going, which is a great way to attack Philly, which we did not do after that
Yeah.
for the rest of the game for some reason.
It works too well. No more.
Yeah, right. But I don't really blame Joe because I don't think Joe is telling them like, go slow, don't pass it quick, don't cut hard. You know what I mean? Like he's telling them the opposite of that. And like ultimately shot quality wise, even though we're saying like all these negative things about how they played offensively, they still got a lot of really good shots that they
got
just
so
flat
many
out
good
missed.
looks.
Yeah. And so I just think like, look, if we make 3 more threes, we're like, oh, suck it, Philly, like what a comeback. So it's just like the nature of the game in some ways, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating.
There was that third quarter where we were just like tied or down 2-3 for 5 minutes. And it was just clean look, missed dunk, bubbled ball. Like the game was there for us to be up 10 plus the whole time. And eventually it just was not, eventually Philly got loose. Like Maxey finally got loose. And it was kind of too late at that point, even though they made a run at it. Yeah, just not sharp enough. Just not nearly sharp enough when they needed to be in that third quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
real
look,
quick, Ben.
Go ahead.
Real quick.
Sure.
Sorry, dude. If you're going to blame Joe for anything, blame him for the beginning of the fourth quarter when Embiid wasn't out there and he didn't just trap Maxey every single time. Like, just what are you doing letting him get downhill? And he made like 4 floaters in the lane. It's just like trap him, make Paul Reed make a play. That's probably the main, that and Porzingis hitting for like 7 minutes in the middle of the fourth quarter was a weird call. But those are the two things I think if you're going to blame Joe, those are the things I would talk about.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And the other thing is, because we've been celebrating the whole curveball thing on both sides of the ball and post-ups being a huge way for us to generate offense. And with those threes not going down, and credit to the Philly defense, they were swarming Tatum or KP or Drew or Jaylen. We'll get to Jaylen, man. But anyone who was trying to post up and generate looks that way, rightfully so, Philly were like, you guys aren't hitting shit from out there, so we're just going to completely collapse on you, which just mitigated any other offensive alternative that we had. So total clusterfuck, total nightmare, especially if you hate the Sixers as much as myself and Aussie Phil here in the chat does. Just an absolute nightmare. So it's been a long 24 hours or so since that game. Someone called out in the chat here, why was Drew Holiday guarding Joel Embiid instead of KP? I mean, and I think we're talking about it in the playback, guys, but we didn't often stick Marcus Smart on Embiid or Biggs to begin games. The thing that was celebrated about Smart was that he could switch on somewhat seamlessly to Biggs and hold his own. The difference here is that we're starting Drew Holiday on Joel Embiid. I think he did a pretty good job. 27 points from Embiid is a huge mitigation from his regular output so far this season and historically. And Drew's just got this low base. Eric Weiss called him a tree stump, along with Derek White as well in a recent pod, which I think held up as well as a tree stump can. And then just the ability to switch off that. If there's a screen that involves Maxey, like Drew can seamlessly switch onto Maxey or navigate that screen as well. So I think he's like a top candidate to defend Embiid in that scenario. Was that, I don't know, do you have any problems with that side of the game plan, Jake?
I still would have gone to Al in the starting lineup and maybe in the start of the fourth quarter, just because I like Al's ability to be more sturdy than Drew as well, and have KP in that roaming role. Like people that are like, why is Porzingis not on Embiid? Foul trouble is going to be a problem when Embiid is going at Porzingis, and it's just. And that's fine. Like he can still be an impactful defender, which he was yesterday, by sticking him on Tobias Harris. Like that was a good move, which we talked about on the prior episode. The defense was not the problem. I think that was fine. I would have maybe gone to the Horford Porzingis thing. But on the other hand, that 5-man group has been so good offensively that like I understand just sticking with it, because then your defense is still totally competent and capable and playing and holding them, under their averages. The problem was the offense wasn't nearly as good as it has been in the prior, even the T-Wolves game. They didn't have Derek White. In all the other moments, the offense with those 5 guys on the court has been really good. Porzingis 0 3-point attempts, I think, in the third quarter. That's, can't happen.
Yeah, we got to count the number of times Jake's going to say the defense wasn't the problem this season because it's gonna, and he's right every time.
Totally.
It's going to be like 40 at least.
Gonna go crazy.
Yeah, no, I had no. I thought Drew did a pretty damn good job, and I like that when KP's in that roamer role, when Embiid turns to like spin off him, like KP's just there with his hands up, contesting the shot. I mean, I don't think you can really complain about how they defended Embiid. Like that's 5 points under his season average. Like that's just fine. And yeah, you're right. We just couldn't score.
They scored 106 points.
That's
nothing. Nothing.
Jeez Louise, man.
Yeah,
terrible.
That's great for our defensive rating, I suppose. Great for theirs too, given we only scored 103. Okay, so we've rattled off, I guess, some of the key points as far as like why this game was lost. Just running through our list here before we circle back on what we're worried might be a long-term problem. We got to passive JT. We got to, the issues not stretching with our shooting bigs there. Jaylen Brown. First shot of the game, he gets a wide open shot, like 2 paces in from the 3-point line, just a few back from the free throw line. Just from a position on the court where you don't typically, I think, practice shots from. He seemed like weirded out by that, and I think that just like muddled his vibes, for lack of a better term, through the rest of the game. It's like he was just confounded by that look. Like, really, this is where you're giving up shots? He front rimmed it, and then he front rimmed basically every shot between then and the end of the fourth quarter, where he went a little bit crazy there. The reason that Jaylen is put under such a microscope after performances like this is because of his contract, and I can't be bothered going back on like the justification for that contract. Like, if you follow the team, you know why we had to sign him for that money. So let's not get into it. But Jaylen, we're a slightly average Jaylen Brown game away from winning this game, just as we were with Drew in Minnesota. So I don't know, like, what's the biggest concern with Jaylen's approach to this game? Is we just having an off night from a shooting perspective, Spoonie, or was there something more to his approach that worried you?
I mean, what was his approach?
Yeah, that's
Did he
a good
have
question.
an approach? Like, look, he gets that wide open
question.
No, it's not at all. I'm just being facetious, but like that mid-range jumper he got to open the game was there all day when Embiid is that deep. He shoots like 50% on that shot, but like he couldn't hold on to the ball long enough to get to that position for the rest of the game. Like, I mean, I get like the memes about Jaylen's handle. It's exaggerated how bad it is, but all the haters were right about his handle last night because that was tough, dude. Like he just didn't seem like involved in the game or something. I don't know. Jake, do you have an explanation? Because I got nothing.
The handle actually itself isn't that bad. It's just like he puts himself in these spots where he's getting like, where he tries to dribble through the whole Philly team, and he just like it's like watching a car crash. You're like, oh no.
Dude,
and
on
then
the playback, we're all screaming, pass it. We just
Pritchard's
know
literally
it's
just wide open from the second that Jaylen catches the inbound pass. Pritchard's wide open towards the half court line. He just makes that simple pass. That whole possession is completely different, and who knows what happens after that. The problem with Jaylen's approach is he tries to dig his way out of it, as opposed to just letting the game flow and like, okay, let's just make an easy pass. Let's just stand in the corner. Let's offensive rebound. Let's go set a screen. Let's cut. He tries to fix it himself and insert his will on the game. And it just leads to him being destructive when I wish he would do the other way around. And I think that's just a common theme. And I'm like, can he learn this at this point? Like, I think we can win with him playing the way that he is, but like it would be so much easier if he on nights like this would just pass the ball to the left and he'll get the ball back because now they're in semi-transition. Who knows? He probably gets it back or on the whip around, and maybe he can attack a manipulated defense and get to his comfortable pull up and probably dribbling twice with his left hand to get there as well. It's just.
He'll probably be amazing in the next game, but he definitely he approaches each game, it seems, with like, I'm motherfucking Jaylen Brown, which cannot blame the guy. He's awesome. I love Jaylen Brown. But there is this little quirk with him where he, has a weekly or bi-weekly bed shitting that we've kind of learnt to endure. But he needs to, I think, and obviously I'm not an NBA player. I probably need to adjust the way I'm framing this, but I feel like he needs to come into each game with a more of an open mind about, okay, I'm not just like number 2 of the 2 top tier players who are capable of creating offense on this team anymore. We've got a wide breadth of really talented offensive players who we need to play through and seek advantages, relative to our opponent that night. And so it's not always going to be, it shouldn't always be the same Jaylen Brown. And we see that with Tatum. I think he adjusts his approach regularly. Like the 15 rebounds in this game, for example, he's capable of adjusting his approach on a game-by-game basis, whereas Jaylen is he's just who he is. And I think if he can get out of that mindset a little bit and open his approach to a game-by-game, difference, then I think we might see more prolonged success from him. What about Al Horford, guys? Are you worried about Al, or is this the same thing every year where he's just kind of like pedaling away there until we get to the playoffs, or are you starting to see a decline that you're concerned about?
Go ahead.
You go. He's been good. He's been good. What the hell's going on, dude? Like, Al's been good. He hasn't made threes. That's literally it right now. Yes, he's maybe getting burnt on some switches and stuff. Show me the big men in the NBA that are like covering Maxey on a switch. Like, they don't exist. Like, it's like Bam and Draymond, maybe. Like he again, the defense, not a problem. Al Horford is still providing competent switches onto wing. He's protecting the rim still really effectively. He always makes the right play. He shoots when he should. He's a really great connective piece still. He's the best screen setter. He's getting guys open to get downhill. He has been fine. And once the threes start to go in, everybody's going to be like, oh, Al's back. He's fine to me. Maybe he looks a tick slower. But I'm not worried about Al Horford in the slightest.
We need to readjust our expectations. Al Horford is a backup center.
Yes.
He is by far the best backup center in the NBA. Like, yeah, he's not 27-year-old Al averaging like 15, 9, and 5 anymore. Like, okay, we all know that. He wasn't that last year either. I don't really see much of a difference from him last year to this year other than, yeah, the threes are just going down right now. But that's okay. He's still defensively... Like, dude, he swatted, who was it in the mini game? He swatted somebody like on a fast break. Like, that was incredible.
Edwards, he rejected Cam Thomas at the rim
Cam
as
Thomas.
well. Yeah, he's been good. He's fine as far as backup center and what he offers you versatility wise on defense. You can go big. You can play Al at the 5 alone. Al is like so far like
from this
below
team's problem.
Like, what do we even? Yeah, because I see people like.
Well, it's interesting, though, because we keep saying, okay, the defense isn't the problem. The defense isn't the problem. Like, we know that.
Well,
so
Jay keeps saying that, at least.
Well, but you're right. But we're talking about Al Horford here and his, I'll say, somewhat declining impact on the game because, yeah, like, we need him to hit his threes. We need him to hit them.
Yeah, true.
And he's not. And I don't know what else I can add to that. We need him
well, do you think that Al not hitting shots is to do with age or just because he's missing shots right now? I do think that he's been taking more contested threes than he hasn't been getting the same clean looks that he's been getting, especially last year. I think that part of that, especially yesterday, is he feels like he has to shoot in some like tight clock situations. And again, can we get this man a clean look on the pick and pop? He's setting these beautiful, glorious, bone-crunching screens. And Drew Holiday's either just like looking him off or passing it like 2.5 seconds too late. But like you're right. Look, if the offense is the problem and Al's not hitting threes, then that's going to be a problem, especially with the way that the Celtics are constructed on offense.
Yeah, look, just quickly, shout out to John Zanis, a figurehead over at CLNS. So thanks for joining us there, John. I hope we're doing you proud with this podcast.
Because the comments, JB is like he's the lightning rod. Just in general, but especially yesterday. And this is the Jaylen Brown experience. Like, he's going to he would have gone for 50 against the Pacers and the Wizards, but it is the Pacers and the Wizards. But that being said, I posted a video of Jaylen Brown torching the Sixers, like, in one of those games where they put up 137 points, they win by 48. Like, he has cooked the Sixers like a lot in his career and found success a lot against Tobias Harris and Maxey. He can't get out of his way sometimes.
Not that night. Yeah, last night was not. And look, I love Jaylen. Huge fan. Think he's great. He's maddening as hell, dude. He is maddening. Like, it's just like he's. I don't know, man. He's just like so up and down. But it's fine when he's your second or third best offensive player. If he was the best offensive player on a team, I'd be very concerned. But he's not, so we can kind of live with it.
Okay, so after game one, we were like, going into the season, my number one concern was Jaylen and his ability, not necessarily to accept his role, but to understand his role. Because I actually do believe that he's bought into the sacrifice, and I want to do whatever it takes to help this team wins. I'm just not sure he like fully understands how to do that, at least yet. And we felt that way after the first game because he kind of forces it, like those two disastrous turnovers, and then he tries to save everybody and then he overhelps and then closes out on Grimes and leads to a 4-point play. Like, just keep it simple, please, Lord.
Echo everything you guys just said. Nothing to add. We do have to get to a word from our sponsor, FanDuel, but just one other thing, problem from this game, and I think this will parlay nicely into long-term problems as well. PP, Payton Pritchard, problematic again in this game. I think the floater is kind of what I see on the inside of my eyelids when I try and sleep after the Sixers game. Is just, that's a good look. You know, he attacked the closeout well, gets the look that everyone wants in the NBA. Like, that's a good, clean look close to the rim. He missed it. He's missing everything. I don't know the exact stat, so I'm sort of paraphrasing here very inaccurately, but he's hit like one shot in the last 4 games or 2 weeks or some ridiculous.
I'm pretty sure I wasn't married the last time Pritchard hit a shot. That's what it feels like.
Yeah,
I may not have been either.
I've been married for like 7 years.
Can I defend Pritchard for a second?
Yeah, sure. I think he needs a little bit of that, so let's hear it.
He does.
I don't think he was that bad last night. I think, yet again, the shots didn't go down, and that's super frustrating. But I thought he looked a lot more confident and aggressive. Like, he was, like, driving. He was making quicker decisions. He was, I don't know, he just seemed like had to be playing with a little bit more confidence. And I think, like, he's going to have a game in the next game or two, maybe this Nets game coming up, where he's going to make some shots, and it's all going to come together for him because I feel like he's so close, man. I really do. And I know it's maddening to watch him like shoot a floater off the side of the backboard or like somehow hit the bottom of the rim on a 3, which I'm not even sure is possible, but he did it. But I really did feel like he did like drive and pass Al open for, I think, the 1-3 Al hit last night. And it was a great play for Pritchard. So like, it's close, man. Right. Right.
Look, to his credit, he's still doing the little things. Like the fact that this apparently 6'2" guy, I don't know how that's actually what he's listed at, is still impacting the game in other ways. Like he grabbed a couple of really key rebounds again yesterday. Like, what did he have? He had 2 offensive rebounds, one of which led to a Hauser 3, and I'm pretty sure it led to a Celtics miss the second time, but it was like in a really crucial part of the game. He's still doing that. It's the shot attempts that still worry me, only getting up 2 threes. I do think it will come. The problem is, like, do we need to allow it to come? How long do we wait here?
That's the question.
Maybe we go back. Maybe we just go back to like where it's 7 games in and we're 5-2. It's like, yeah, it could be 10 more games. It doesn't really matter because Pritchard finding it's going to be really valuable for us, like in the back third of the season. But as I'm talking about it, I'm like, does it really matter if Pritchard finds it? Because is he really playing in the conference finals and the finals? Probably not.
And meanwhile, Svi Mihajlovic is laying in wait there. Let's just get to a quick word from our sponsor, FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Okay.
If you'd like to win that bet, the bonus bet, you go Cowboys money line versus the Giants against whatever his name is, Tommy DeVito, whatever the made up cute quarterback is playing for the Giants against the Cowboys defense coming off the
NPC quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. That's the money line to get that one done.
Love it. Thanks, Jake. I did not have a bet prepared, so I really appreciate the clutch advice there. All right, so Spoonie, the poor shooting, 39% last game, 32% from three, stagnant offense during the middle quarters, our inability to stretch bigs, rim protectors out of the paint, Tatum being passive, Jaylen Brown being Jaylen Brown, Payton Pritchard being Payton Pritchard, of all of those things, which are sort of the recent issues that we've discussed the last two podcasts, which of those worry you the most in terms of being a long-term issue that sort of becomes part of this team's long-term identity?
I don't know if it's necessarily Tatum being too passive that worries me, but I think it's that Tatum not being able to find a way to get to his spots often enough. Because like the one knock on Tatum, he's almost like a perfect basketball player, is that like he just doesn't have the consistency of other high level top tier superstars. And I think part of it is like John Zanis in the chat saying the passivity, like I'm not sure he's like intentionally passive. It's just like he just maybe he's not working hard enough to get to his spot. Maybe that is passivity. Maybe that's yeah. But it just seems like he's gotta knock out these types of games if we're and really it's more like he can't have these types of games in the playoffs. I don't really care about the seventh game of the season against Philly. But I think like Tatum taking the next step is really kind of the underlying conversation about what we're talking about with him. He needs to take the next step for this team to like probably win a championship, I think. So Reed, so much as I think that's really important, and I've seen it with him basically every other game other than last night, so it's fresh on my mind.
Yeah, look, I think we've been tracking the Tatum leap because, like, there is going to be one at some point. Is it this year? Is it next year? When he's entering the prime he's age 26 year. He's not even 26 yet. It is coming. It has felt like it is here so far until yesterday, in my opinion. I know the Timberwolves game was frustrating, but he wasn't passive. He was, he actually still had a pretty good game, like overall. The post up and the physicality stuff that we've been clamoring for the last several years, we've really seen so far to start the season. Finally, like realizing that he's a monster. Like he had that little comment in a post game press conference. He's like, "I'm like 6'9", 225," as kind of like a joke, but like, yeah, I'm really fucking big. It's like it just doesn't come naturally to him to be really fucking big. Like he sometimes forgets. Like no one on the Philadelphia side yesterday. Do I feel like he shouldn't be able to post up, except for Joel Embiid? Like he's got the advantage on pretty much everyone across the board. And again, it was like they just didn't go to it really. Like why did we not? Like they went to it a little bit, but like not something that they went to consistently, and not something they went to like as much as they did prior to this game. Like, and it's not natural. And so this is the first blip of the new bully ball Tatum experience. I do think. Next game, we get back to it. But it's like, you're right, Spoonie. It's not necessarily a skill leap for him. It's the mentality leap for him. Yeah, and Eric Weiss has kind of been on this thing, and John Zana's kind of mentioned it here, like the front running thing. They've just had a weird entry into the NBA as top 3 picks. They've really only experienced like immense success outside of winning a title. And not really understanding how bad. Like, but then I'm like, they had that weird season with the COVID where they were the 7th seed. They have gone the life experience of an NBA veteran at this point. Like they've gone through, you feel like everything at this point. Mm-hmm. It just isn't in their nature. It feels like to really enforce their will all the time. And then again, it was just one game and we're 7 games in. So
that's got to be the mantra at some
Please.
point, right? We just don't have enough sample size, especially, if we slice the season in half, like they've been playing much better basketball than they have been bad basketball, but, recency bias is a thing, especially in the world of podcasting. Passivity is maybe the one thematic word to wrap around all of this, because even in Jaylen Brown's case of being reckless, as someone mentioned in the chat, like that's a form of passivity on his part, in that he needs to have a maintained focus to not like just be himself and exhibit his inherent like habitual characteristics on the court. Like
My wife tells me that all the time.
yeah. I was like, hopefully someone picks up on that. And I think it's a struggle for him to maintain that focus, right? Like we probably feel that in our regular daily lives, in our day-to-day jobs, where especially working from home, like you need to maintain an unnatural level of focus to remain on task. And for Jaylen, I think it's probably particularly difficult for him to navigate that. I feel like we've gotten to know him in that sense over the last 7 years or so. And then the second and third quarter stagnation really just piggybacks off of both of those things. If we're getting the worst version of Jaylen, we're getting an anomalous version of Jason Tatum, then the outcome of that is going to be stagnation. And unfortunately in this game, that was really active for a prolonged period in the second and third quarter. So again, it's almost like we don't need to do this many podcasts, guys. It's everything ties back to the Jays and their behavior on the court, really. So is there anything else, Jake, that jumped out to you as a potential long-term issue from what we've seen these last 2 games?
I mean, it's just like the expectations of Tatum are so high, partly because we need them. We need him to reach certain levels in order for us to win a title. And just like, I'm not sure he's as naturally gifted as the Jokic, Steph. He doesn't have the physical dominance of like a Giannis. But then again, he's just kind of like entering the prime. But like, Steph Curry goes 6 for 17 yesterday. They lose to the Nuggets. Like there have been lapses across the NBA with pretty much all the superstars except for Jokic. He's pretty much the only unassailable guy on a night-to-night basis. Like Luka was a disaster yesterday, absolute disaster. And he could do no wrong for the first 5-6 games of the season. So there's just very few guys where you're getting like night-to-night dominance from October to June.
Yeah, and oh, sorry, Ben.
No, go ahead, Spoonie.
I was going to say, like, some of the stuff, like the spacing not being right, maybe them not looking super connected offensively, that type of stuff, I think it's just going to work itself out over the course of a season, because it is really hard to incorporate another high-usage star and essentially another point guard who's playing next to a point guard in 7 games. Like, it's just not going to be perfect. It's not going to be crisp. There's just not the continuity that we've had over the past few years with the addition of Drew and KP. So I think probably by Christmas, we'll start to see things crisper.
Christmas.
Plant my flag, baby.
Yeah.
They can stuff the chimney with a few Celtics wins. That'd be nice.
One thing I will say, I think we can say that the answers are on the roster. I think previously the answers to fixing the offense may not have been on the roster. I feel very confident that KP is the answer, and he has been fantastic pretty much across the board offensively, was fantastic yesterday. Really the only offensive like bright spot really outside of Sam Hauser. But I think the answer's on the roster. Can they find it?
Yeah, well, you just mentioned it, Jake. Something that is definitely not a long-term issue. We can now write it off as a small blip, a short-term issue. Sam Hauser. He's back, baby.
Yes.
House party, house money, all the
Let's
puns.
go.
He's hitting his shots. He's contributing to spacing. He's a reliable, seventh man, essentially.
He's fantastic.
Never in doubt. I don't think any of us ever cast any doubt upon him. I definitely did, so
No.
apologies.
I definitely did.
It's good to have him back. It's good to have you back, Samuel Hauser. Another interesting thing that occurred after the game, we've got a clip to run here, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, where Joe Mazzulla getting into a little bit of a back and forth with Gary Washburn in the post-game interview.
I think I was just finished reading a great article that you wrote in 2016 that the Celtics shot too many threes, and they shot 42, and that was 7 years ago. And we only shot 5 more tonight, and they lost 121 to 114, and you blame the offense, but not the defense. So, like, what's your fascination with too much threes for the last 7 years?
No, it's been 7 years.
2016, it's 2023. I just read it. It was a great article.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
When it was like, are the Celtics settling for too many threes? You said that 7 years ago. You're ahead of the curve.
I am ahead of my time.
Apologies
Oh,
for not
man.
leveling the audio on that clip before I uploaded it. It was very loud. I have this as a good thing. I just think it's there's no consequences from this, right? Like, it's just a bit of fun from the fan perspective after the game to see a bit of a back and forth like that. Jake, you might have a different opinion. What do you think?
I like it because I'm on one hand, I like it from Joe because I feel like Gary's just been going at him for this 3-pointer thing like every game. And like, I think that there was some times where they maybe settled yesterday, but like that they need to shoot threes against that defense. And Joe was like clearly pissed off with the defensive 3-second thing with Embiid. Embiid was camped out in the paint. The only way to loosen that thing up is to hit some threes. And they weren't executing on that. Like, the Celtics have to shoot a lot of threes. The best offenses in the NBA shoot a lot of threes. That being said, I think Joe could have saved this for a better moment. Like, I didn't feel like it was the gotcha moment that he was like really like hoping it was going to be. But I think it was like a long time coming between Gary and Joe. And Joe's just a competitive motherfucker. He hates losing. And like these press conferences, he gets like chirped like this, and he's like, he is thinking in his head, Gary, you don't know ball.
Yeah.
You don't know ball. And this is his way of doing it. He's kind of a psycho. But yeah.
Joe is a complete maniac. He was a maniac as a player in college too. Like, super undersized point guard, locked up John Elite 8, no big deal, West Virginia University. So I have a hard time criticizing Joe just because he is a WVU guy and I'm incredibly biased. This was a little strange. I'm with you, Jake. Like, shouldn't he have busted this out when we made a bunch of threes and won a close game or something like that? Like, if we made like 22 threes and won like 135 to 122 or like 135 to 132. And it's like, why are you obsessed with the threes? Like, shouldn't you be mad about the defense? We gave up 130.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just was like a strange exchange, but also like Gary has been coming at Joe super hard. So like, it's pretty inconsequential. I think it's just kind of funny.
How about this spin zone?
I thought it was
Spin zone.
hilarious.
The players also don't like talking to the media. And so they see Joe like going back at Gary and the media, and they're like, yeah, Joe sticking up for us. We hate the media all together, all for one.
Yeah.
Galvanizes the team.
Galvanize.
Turning point.
Yeah.
Love it. All right.
Stretch.
Well, I just thought it was interesting and unusual. Like, we don't often see a sort of a clap back to that degree. So I don't know. We're here for entertainment, and it was entertaining, if nothing else. So
I bet Joe probably regrets it. He's I feel like he's trying to be like this new, like, chill, like, I'm not crazy guy, like with the JJ Redick podcast and stuff, and he couldn't help himself because
He's crazy.
He's a psycho.
well, and like Jaylen, he let go of his grasp on his focus just for a second there, and it was all he needed. Now, we'll end on this. We'll preview the IST, we're calling it, as we become more familiar with the concept, the in-season tournament, Friday, 7:30 p.m. at home against the Garden, which actually starts a 3-game homestand finally for the Celtics. I feel like we're really in need of just like a solid stint of games in TD Garden. We've had so many road games so far this season. Yeah, it's crazy. So in our group, if you need a reminder, are the Nets, who we play on Friday night, 7:30 p.m., the Raptors, the Bulls, and the Magic, who probably will win it all, at least as far as we're concerned.
Well, they'll definitely beat us. That's for sure.
And I just saw Grandy had a tweet here. Okay, so tomorrow, the Nets are getting healthier as they arrive in Boston for the in-season tournament opener tomorrow. Cam Johnson, who hasn't played since opening night, he returns. Yeah. Ben Simmons, who sat out Wednesday, has been upgraded to questionable. His availability, not his shot selection. Nice work, Grandy. So here's the court, if anyone has a short memory. It's not parquet. It's not even colorful, really, but I think maybe the sort of the deadened green might actually make for a better contrast from a TV watching perspective. Yeah. I don't know, guys. Like, thoughts, feelings going into this one?
I spoke about this on the playback stream yesterday. I love the in-season tournament idea, at least to try it. Like, you're going to get all these teams together. They're going to get out of the group stages. In theory, the good teams will get out, and then you're just going to get more good games. Like, how many nights on League Pass do you have, like, good team versus bad team or whatever? In theory, the Celtics are going to, like, match up against the Lakers have been bad. The Warriors, or who knows, the Nuggets or whatever. Like, you could get like these different matchups you're not going to get as often as you would normally. And if it's like do or die elimination semifinals or finals in Vegas, like it's I think it would be cool. Some of the courts I like, and some of the courts it takes me like half a quarter to like even understand what's happening. But Spooty doesn't like the court, clearly.
I love the in-season tournament, Jake. You completely you convinced me when we were on Playback last night about that. These teams are actually going to care more, and they're going to care in sort of a playoff sense, and it's teams you won't see playing in the playoffs unless they meet up in the finals, and I think that's like really cool. Do you guys ever watch University of Oregon games? Because their court is that color. And it is like so distractingly hard to watch them play.
Oh, really? The
like,
Ducks?
dude, yeah, but they have like trees and shit on it, so this might not be as bad. But like the full color courts like that, I just like as a viewer, not a big fan. Kind of hate them. Just throw the trophy on there, man. That's all we need to know to mark it as like a tournament game. Like we don't need a full green. Like some of these are like horrendous.
It's so intense.
Good thing I'm not colorblind, dude. Like, because you couldn't watch this game. Like, that's
you're out. If you're a
crazy
colorblind fan, you're out. Go find something else to do during the season tournament.
Yeah, you're listening to Grandy.
Gary.
Yeah, you're listening to Grandy if you're colorblind. It's like the Heat court, they're just like the crazy red. Whatever. Yeah.
I think it made me colorblind watching the Heat on that court, dude.
Just with all of our issues the last couple of games, I can't help but just view this as a regular season game that we need to win, which, like, in a vacuum, it is still. And
a must win? A Ben Vallis must win?
Wow. Is this our 8th this year?
Game 8?
I mean, you can make a case for every game being a must win. Like, if you think about it, we've just lost 2. Now we're going to play a significantly worse team than those last 2 teams that we just lost to. We're going to be back at home, finally. And yeah, whatever. It's an in-season tournament game. That's inconsequential. But it's a must-win in that, like, if we continue our skid and lose to a lesser team now at home, then that's really problematic. I think we can make excuses for losing the last 2 games. I don't think we can make an excuse for losing this upcoming game. So in that sense, I'm giving it the Ben Vallis must-win stamp. It's a must-win game. We have to win. We mentioned the homestand. So the other upcoming games at home are against the Raptors, who have been good. Scotty Barnes has been quite good as well. And then the Knicks, who are, an upper-tier team as well. And then we're back in Philly on Wednesday the 15th.
Yeah, it's so
Straight
weird.
back there. A shot at redemption, guys.
Yeah, that feels way more like a must-win to me than the Nets game. Granted, I would love to go to Vegas, not me personally, but the Celtics for the sudden death games. Yeah, that's a fun little stretch here. I hate the back-to-backs as a concept. I wonder if the Raptors also have a back-to-back. Do they play tomorrow? No, damn it. So that's that second night of a back-to-back. They're actually pretty good on back-to-backs last year, though. So,
and we'll finally get a look at how Joe manages the rotation on a back-to-back as far as like Al and even Porzingis is concerned.
Pritchard better freaking play well in the next couple of games because Al's not going to play in the second night of the back-to-back, and then Svi's going to come in and go like 6 for 9 and have like a reverse jam, and that's going to be it for him.
As much as I believe in Pritchard, I don't give a shit. If Svi balls out like Sia Payton, like you can get cut for all I care, dude.
I saw a crazy idea for like you trade for someone to get the $6 million like TPE thing, and then after 2 months you can trade them again, and then you'll be able to aggregate that salary plus the Pritchard salary for Daniel Tice or someone else that makes like $9 million, like a TJ McConnell or an Alex Caruso. Clock's ticking.
Clock's ticking. All right, well, no better place to leave it than some PP trade talk. So we'll leave it there. Bring on the win streak for the Celtics. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, all of those great things. On Spotify, there's a feature now where you can leave comments on the podcast. So please leave us a comment there, and we'll get back to you on the next show. Jake, Spoonie, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celtics.
I love the Celtics!